Welcome back to the Stack Shack Sports Show. Today we move on to a new division. We have done the North, we have done the East. It's time for the South. AFC South, starting off with the Indianapolis Colts. A team, last year in the offseason, the big drafting of Anthony Richardson as the quarterback, an absolutely explosive playmaker, was fun to watch in the preseason, and unfortunately got injured. Now, we saw it coming a little bit. He's a physical player, and physical quarterbacks, go ask Cam Newton. You can't last forever. And Anthony Richardson dealt with some injury issues immediately. And so that was very disappointing, but he's healthy, looking to come back. So what can they do this season? As a little recap, they were 9-8 last year. They missed the playoffs, but a winning record. They have stayed mostly pat. They have not made a lot of big additions and really didn't have any big losses from the team that was last year. I mean, in reality, Roquan Davis, a solid defensive tackle. I think that was a decent pickup. Subtle moves more for the Colts than big. I mean, some of the other teams we've looked at, 3 key losses and key additions is not enough. They have too many other moving pieces. But in the end, Joe Flacco is the new backup. Now, I think that was a really solid bet. I think if you're the Colts, the reality is you got to be worried about Anthony Richardson's health. He's too physical of a runner in that quarterback position. Again, I'm not saying he can't throw the ball. He is an explosive playmaker, but the type and style that he plays with, it just lends itself to getting hurt at the NFL level. Now, I think he's probably grown from that. He's now had another offseason, matured. I'm sure they're talking to him and working on him on keeping himself protected. But to have a capable backup like Joe Flacco, who led the Browns to the playoffs last season when Deshaun Watson went out, right? I think that's a really solid pickup. Now, Joe's getting old, so will he be able to, be a good, solid backup for much longer? I don't know. But having a veteran presence to help the young Anthony Richardson, he is their future if he can stay healthy. Offense, defense, really not great, right? Both bottom, half of the league. Offense 20th, defense 22nd. But I do think they have the coach right. And I think Anthony Richardson is a very explosive quarterback who's going to be fun to watch, and is going to be able to keep him in games, again, if he can stay healthy. As far as important games, I actually think the first 4 weeks of the season are going to be absolutely electric for the Colts. Anthony Richardson, a young quarterback who we really have only seen play a few games. And it's kind of the gauntlet to start the year of the new quarterbacks in new places, right? Goes against the Texans. Now, CJ Stroud obviously last year was incredibly productive, but he's moving into his sophomore year. Will there be a sophomore slump? Week 1 should be a fun matchup. 2 guys going into their second year. Anthony Richardson, obviously, we haven't seen much of. CJ Stroud was quite electric last year, leading the Texans to a playoff win, actually over Joe Flacco and the Browns, right? Week 2, going against Jordan Love, right? It's all the young quarterbacks here. Week 3 versus the Bears. People are going to be wanting to see how does Caleb Williams match up. Anthony Richardson, again, second year, matching up against Caleb Williams, going to be fun in the Bears. And then the Steelers. I mean, you got Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Who's going to be starting at that point? I would imagine it's going to be Russell. But new quarterback in a new place. So a lot of kind of the first 2 weeks, 2 quarterbacks that towards the end of last season especially looked electric. Can they replicate it? Now that there's a little more game film, teams are going to have a whole offseason to prep for them. Will there be that slump? I know Jordan Love, he's been in the league for a few years now, so it's not like a sophomore slump, but sophomore starting slump, you might say. So Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, the first 2 weeks, and then you get Caleb Williams, a rookie, and then you get Russell Wilson on a Steelers team and a new environment trying to rebuild that image. So I really think those first 4 matchups are quite electric, quite interesting. I'm curious how those are all going to go. I think we're going to learn a lot about really all 4 of those teams in the first 4 weeks because of this matchup with the Colts. It's almost going to be the benchmark of, well, okay, if they win those games, all right, We're going to put them here. If they lose the games, if the Colts are better, where do we put them? And I think we'll get a good sense for where the Colts kind of fit in. I don't think the Bears are going to have a great season, but the Texans, Packers, and Steelers all feel like they could be playoff teams. Texans and Packers especially. Steelers, I can't count them out. We talked about this earlier in the week. Bears would be the team that probably looks the weakest out of that. So I think we're going to learn a lot in that first 4 games about the Colts. Where do they fit in? How do they stack up? Texans and Packers being, that top upper echelon, maybe battling for those AFC championship games or NFC championship games. Bears, probably not, but maybe fighting for a playoff spot. So if you have the Colts beat the Bears, maybe they lose to the Texans and Packers, you might be able to slot the Colts in as, okay, maybe this is a playoff team, or maybe right on that playoff bubble, depending on how they do to the Bears or Steelers. Now, if they beat the Texans and the Packers and go on a bit of a run here, we might be looking at a team that could make a bit of a deeper playoff run, with the pieces that they have around them. So I'm curious, Colts fans out there, let me know in the comments down below. I mean, how do you feel? How do you feel about Anthony Richardson's health? I know that it's kind of an unfortunate situation to be in where you feel like you have the pieces to compete at a high level, make playoff runs, and it really almost is like, well, if Anthony Richardson's healthy, I think they could be a playoff team. If he's not, they're probably not a playoff team. Like, it really is as simple as that with the Indianapolis Colts, and injuries are just so hard to predict. So really curious how the Colts fans are feeling. You got to feel okay, at least with Joe Flacco. Seems like a capable backup coming in. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time.